Hello, everybody, and welcome to our weekly update. My name is Jax James. I'm the State Policy Manager for NORML, and I'm here to chat with you guys a little bit about some newly filed legislation, some moving legislation, a few things that have died and been enacted. And then I want to reach out to you guys in the comments and see where you're watching from so I can let you know if there's any additional legislation that you can participate in your state. So, let's go ahead and kick it off. You will see below in the description that there is a link to the blog that will have all of the action alerts that I'm going to go over. But also, if you want, you can go to norml.org/act. You can go to your state, hover over it, and it will show you every single bill that is currently being tracked with an action alert by us. So here we go, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about some exciting stuff that's been happening. I want to talk first about Maryland. Now, while I'm talking about this, make sure you drop your states in the comments so that I can cover anything extra that I don't go over here. But in Maryland, as you guys know, there's two bills, House Bill 556 and Senate Bill 516, to regulate cannabis for those 21 and up. It would allow cannabis businesses to serve both medical and adult patients. The bill would create an avenue for on-site consumption for 21 and up so that it can be consumed in a social setting. It also institutes certain parental and personal protections for both medical and adult use consumers. Additionally, the bill increases the amount of cannabis that a registered medical patient may possess to 4 ounces of flower, 36 grams of infused products, and up to 4 plants for home cultivation. Currently, patients are not allowed to cultivate plants in their homes. So these are all some really great improvements. Both bills have now passed from their chamber of origin. And because lawmakers have made amendments to the legislation, the differences will now need to be worked out in a conference committee before finalized language can be advanced to the governor's desk. So make sure that you stay tuned to see what's going on in the conference committee and when you can reach out to the governor to request their signature. And next, let's talk about some medical access bills. So in Idaho, newly filed legislation HB 370 creates a medical cannabis access program for patients. And in Nevada, AB 411 allows doctors to administer non-smoked formulations of medical marijuana to patients in certain hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, or if they are undergoing hospice care. In Vermont, there's a bill, House Bill 270, which increases the allowable THC content in a single edible product from 50 milligrams to 100 and allows medical patients to grow up to 6 mature and 12 immature plants. It further expands the list of qualifying conditions and increases the number of patients a caregiver may provide services to. It additionally removes annual registration fees for caregivers. House Bill 270 has been passed by the House and now awaits action in the Senate. There's a few additional bills that I want to highlight for everybody today. There's some newly filed legislation in Alaska, SB 100, which seals low-level marijuana convictions from public view. In Colorado, newly filed HB 1279 permits residents to purchase products over the internet with the opportunity to pick up their product or have it delivered to their homes. Now, in Illinois, SB 125 prohibits law enforcement from engaging in motor vehicle search based solely on the odor of burnt or raw cannabis. This bill has passed the Senate and it now heads to the House. In Louisiana, we have 2 new bills I want to talk about. HB 351, which prevents qualified patients from being disqualified from workers' compensation or from being denied unemployment compensation. Additionally, HB 286 allows that those with marijuana possession misdemeanor offenses can file a motion for the expungement of their records up to 90 days after their conviction, and first-time offenders would be exempt from processing fees. One more bill out of Maryland that I wanted to highlight. HB 232 seeks to redefine child neglect statuses so that parents' use of cannabis can no longer be evidence of a crime. And this bill has passed the House, and it has more recently passed the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee, where it now heads to the Senate floor. In Washington, SB 5123 makes it unlawful for an employer to discriminate against a job applicant solely based on their off the clock cannabis use away from the workplace. This bill has been amended and has passed both the House and Senate. It now heads to the governor's desk, who is expected to sign this legislation. So before I get to a few more bills I want to talk about, I'm going to come back over to the comments and see where you guys are watching from. So we've got someone from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I know that there are two bills in Minneapolis that have been going round and round in some committees, doing some perfecting language having to do with legalization. So definitely make sure that you participate in those. I see some people from Maryland. I talked about a few bills that are going on, but there are a few more that are still active that made it through the crossover date. Indiana and Nevada, I'll come back to talk to you guys about that. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you for commenting where you guys are watching. Now let's talk about, there are two bills that we oppose that I want to discuss. In Kentucky, Senate Bill 228 wanted to define marijuana concentration legal limits in a person's system while operating a motor vehicle at 5 or fewer nanograms of THC per milliliter of blood taken within 2 hours of operating the vehicle. As you know, these per se limits are unscientific and we oppose them outright. This bill did fail to advance out of the House of Representatives, so great news there. In Montana, SB 546 would have dismantled the state's marijuana industry by banning adult use retail sales, raising the tax on medical marijuana products from 40% to 20%, and imposing a new, even lower THC cap on certain extracts and other products. This bill was tabled in the Senate Business, Labor, and Economics Affairs Committee. So that's two great bills to die because we oppose them. And so that's some good news there. Now, I want to talk about some enacted legislation for you guys. Great news in Kentucky. If you guys were watching last week, SB 47 creates a medical program in the state, and the legislation institutes a governing body that will decide daily THC limits, methods of use and consumption. Patients can have a 20-day supply of their medication at their residence and a 10-day supply on their person. The bill provides certain patient and caregiver protections while allowing for medical use of cannabis at school. Patients are not considered to be under the influence solely based on THC metabolites being in their system. The legislation does not allow for inhaled cannabis uptake methods, nor does it allow for home cultivation. But this bill passed both chambers and has been signed by the governor. So really great news for patients in Kentucky that there's finally a program there for them to participate in. Two more bills I want to highlight. In New Mexico, we've got HB 314, which amends the state's existing expungement law by permitting residents with past convictions to verify whether automatic expungement has occurred and request expedited expungement if eligible charges have not yet been expunged. Again, this bill passed both chambers and has been signed by the governor. In North Dakota, HB 1478 permits terminally ill patients to use proof of their admittance into hospice care in lieu of a doctor's written recommendation to be registered as a medical cannabis patient in that state. This bill passed both chambers and has been signed by the governor. So some really great changes and additions have been enacted this session. So let me come back over to the comments over here and see some other places that you guys are. Oh, I see some more comments. Awesome. So we talked about Minneapolis, the legalization bill that's going on there. In Connecticut, there's no currently filed legislation to highlight there, but in Indiana, I'm sorry that my screen is probably jumping a little bit because my mouse is not working. Indiana, unfortunately, the bills that were filed there did not make it through the crossover deadline. So those bills are dead for the season. In Nevada, we have legislation having to do with cannabis events, juvenile penalty reduction, and cannabis at medical facilities that we have action alerts that you can participate in. Now, if you're watching and you're wondering, how do I get to these action alerts? You go to norml.org/act, and you'll see a dynamic map there at the top. You just hover over your state, and it'll pop up all of the current action alerts there. I'm going to come back over to the comments over here. Let's see. Georgia, I think that those bills have all, yeah, the bills in Georgia did not make the crossover deadline and have therefore died. I apologize for that, guys. It's such a bummer. In Arizona, I see someone from there. There's legislation having to do with insurance coverage, tenant protections, and expanded medical access. So 3 action alerts you can participate with there. Let's see. Virginia's session is closed, but in Pennsylvania, there is a bill having to do with DUI, and we are expecting to also see another bill having to do with a legalization market there. So definitely stay tuned in Pennsylvania. Well, guys, it looks like I've gone over all of the new and moving legislation. I've been able to go through the comments and talk about the additional bills that are going on in your state. So if you're just tuning in and you missed it, in the description below, you will see the link to the blog today. You'll also see a link to normal.org/act. That's got that dynamic map. You can hover over your state, see all of the action alerts going on in your state if there is a current session with active legislation. You'll also see a link there having to do with our chapters. We have dozens of chapters across the country, and of course we would love to have you engaged in working with them at the local level to ensure that we can reform these marijuana laws. So definitely click there, get engaged, and if there's not a chapter near you, there's even a way for you to create a chapter. And then last but not least, I want to remind everyone that NORML's efforts to be a consumer and patient advocacy organization that reforms laws and the benefit of those, demographics. We work and fundraise solely based on our small donations and our membership dues. And so I definitely encourage you to click on the membership link there and become a dues paying member or become a donor, a one-time or repeat donor. We definitely can use your help. There's still a lot of legislation going on during the sessions. And so I encourage you all to show your support in that way. So until next Wednesday, I will bid you all adieu, and thank you so much for tuning in, friends.